Good morning, afternoon or evening, everyone, depending on where you are in the world. Thank you for joining today's WERA Doctoral and Early Career Network webinar on creating effective conference poster presentations. My name is Natasha Zabel, and I'm the chair of the WERA Doctoral and Early Career Network. Now, WERA is the World Education Research Association, and it is my absolute privilege to be here tonight with people from all over the world who will be presenting today from the respective research associations in different countries. So WERA actually consists of both individual members and research associations worldwide. So I am the European Educational Research Association representative for WERA. Now, this webinar is specifically designed to provide early career researchers and doctoral candidates with practical tips to design impactful posters that stand out in a conference setting. The poster format plays a unique role in research communication, and it's a really good way to distill your research into an engaging and digestible format that draws viewers in and can spark really valuable conversations with your colleagues. A well-designed poster can really increase the visibility of your work. It can connect you to new colleagues and ultimately further the reach of your research impact. And I think that's demonstrated just by this event today, where everyone has come together as a result of our previous experience in Manchester earlier this year. Now, in today's session or workshop, we've got a really fantastic lineup. Firstly, we have Dr. Lisa Reid, who is the WERA representative for the British Education Research Association, BERA, and she will set the scene, sharing some insights on what to expect from the conference experience and why poster presentations are a valuable part of it. We then have the pleasure of seeing two outstanding poster presentations by Paul Hodes and Wen-Chia Chiang, who will share their recent work and their poster designs with us. And after that, I'm really excited to welcome two experienced judges who will share valuable insights on what makes a successful and effective poster presentation. We hope that this webinar provides you with some tips and insights about key elements of impactful poster design. I hope the tips from the judges are really valuable for you. Those insights on using your posters to engage and connect with conference attendees. And of course, you'll have the opportunity to ask questions during the Q&A session at the end. I really encourage you to record any questions you might have as we go along. And Dr. Marissa Leask at the end will be moderating our discussion. So just before we dive in, a few quick reminders. Please drop your questions or keep the chat going and we'll address them at the end. We encourage you to actively engage online because this is a great chance to learn directly from our speakers and judges. Without further ado, let me hand over to Dr. Lisa Reid, who will start off by sharing her insights on the BERA-WERA conference experience that we've just had, and we'll set the stage for our presentations. Thank you all, and I hope you find today's webinar both inspiring and informative.
Thanks, Natasha. That's really great. So my name's Lisa Reid. I work out at the University of Dundee, and I'm the representative for BERA for the early career researchers. There's a team of us across the UK, and as part of my role, I'm also representative on the BERA on the WERA committee as well around developing early career researchers. So Natasha asked me to come here today just to reflect on the BERA-WERA conference in September, which was a really fantastic event. It was the first time that WERA and BERA have been together, and it had really offered an opportunity for all of us researchers, but especially for the early career and emerging researchers, to meet a wider body of people and discuss our work. And the poster presentations are a real opportunity to create those conversations and to create snapshots for those conversations. So that in the BERA-WERA and in all BERA conferences, we have the poster presentations both available in the lobby where the main meeting area is, as well as individual poster presentation sessions. Those poster presentation sessions are usually around about 5 minutes and offer an opportunity for one-to-one conversations and for people to ask questions about particular areas of research. And I find them really valuable because it means that there's an opportunity to get a snapshot of somebody's research and actually start the conversations, which is what Natasha talked about at the very beginning. So I'd really encourage everybody and anybody to consider doing poster presentations at the conferences that they're attending to. There is a huge amount of time that goes into making a poster, and especially the amount of time that you have to present can feel in compromise to doing a paper presentation, because often it's 5 minutes at the BERA conference, for example, for a poster versus maybe 15 or 20 for a paper. But actually the amount of thought and the investment of time in creating the poster creates a really valuable artifact for sharing widely about your research, about using some of those animations potentially in your thesis and in wider publications, as well as the fact that they are available in the lobby, they are available online, they're available to be shared really easily, which means that all the investment of time in making a poster really sets up for future dissemination of your research. And I would really encourage everybody to consider that when they're thinking about being part of the poster presentations at any future conference. And I hope that sets the scene for us up, because we're going to be hearing from some of our poster presentations from the BERA-WERA conference. So I'm really looking forward to that as well.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Okay, let's now, I've got Paul up on the spotlight. And I'd like to do a brief introduction, a very warm welcome to Paul Frederick Hodes, who is a research assistant and lecturer at the Johannes Gutenberg University in Mainz, working at the Chair of Business of Education. Since December 2023, he's been pursuing his doctorate, examining how vocational education impacts the critical online reasoning skills of business students. Alongside his doctoral research, he also teaches at the university, using his background in business education to support his students' learning. Now, we have all quite diverse research backgrounds, but we learned something from everyone's presentation. So I look forward to learning from your presentation, Paul. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Natasha, so much, and good morning, a very good morning, or good day, or good evening, depending on where you are. From my side, I'm a research assistant at Johannes Gutenberg University, and it's really a pleasure for me to join this meeting today and share some insights from our work. I'll just try to share my screen and hope you can see it, everybody.
Looks good.
Perfect. This is my poster, and today I'd like to discuss a critical issue facing higher education, not only in Germany. Let me just zoom a bit into my poster. Yeah, maybe you can see it better now. A critical issue facing higher education, not only in Germany. It's about the digital literacy gap among university students, because most students across universities rely on the internet daily for their studies. However, many research shows that many lack the skills to effectively navigate, but also utilize online information from the internet. And despite much research on media use, we still know little about how students learn online and how they choose information and what affects their use of online sources, especially in higher education. And CORE, Critical Online Reasoning in Higher Education, is an international research unit on higher education students and how they acquire, evaluate, and use accurate information from reliable online sources, and how they build knowledge and complete tasks, and succeed in higher education. Our project aims to understand this competencies of students and how they navigate through the mixed quality online environment. Therefore, our core project and our core research is based on a new theoretical and conceptual framework for modeling and assessing these skills, critical online reasoning. You can see it here on the left of my poster. And critical online reasoning consists of 3 overarching and overlapping cognitive facets. You can see them here in this circle. The first facet is online information acquisition, OIA. And those OIA skills are, for example, something like selecting search engines or selecting the right databases for your research online, but also specifying search queries. The second facet is CIE, and CIE is critical information evaluation. And critical information evaluation skills are, for example, evaluating websites' credibility based on cues. And the third facet is the REAS component in our core construct. And it means the synthesis of information that are accessed via this online research, including accounting for common errors and biases, but also considering maybe contradictory arguments in this online research. So this is our core facets, so those are our core facets. Therefore, our research is divided into 3 key areas. So A, B, C. So let me just have a look, or let us just have a look at area A. And in area A, you can see it here in blue, and this circle. Here we are examining how students' generic but also domain-specific core skills develop throughout bachelor programs, also in relation to our 4 disciplines we chose for, medicine, physics, economics, and sociology. In area B, we analyze the quality of the online sources and the information the students are using for learning, and also for solving course-related tasks. But in area B, we also have a look on how information features are related to core skills and their learning outcomes. Finally, in area C, core and information landscape integration, we match and analyze higher education students' core processes and performance data we have from area A, with the annotation data of sources and content from B. And we want to find out what processes like web behavior while searching online, or maybe also eye movements, are characteristic for successful versus for unsuccessful core performances. What patterns are identifiable between the annotated data of online information features and students' core performances? And as I said earlier, for this purpose, we chose study domains that are high in demand, medicine and economics. And in our case, physics and sociology serve as our control groups. And maybe you ask yourself, how do we measure the core competences? We measure them and try to measure them accurately while students are placed in realistic scenarios and asked to complete domain-specific and generic tasks using the real internet. So students get access to an online platform and they are asked to complete generic and domain-specific tasks using the whole internet and the whole environment, and we try to track everything they do online while this assessment. And each task follows a conceptual and assessment taxonomy consisting of 3 things. You can see it here on the left. First, we got the 3 core facets, as I said earlier, OIA, CIE, and REAS. And then we got 3 development levels of students' competencies, like basic, advanced, and proficient, based on the model of domain learning by Patricia Alexander. And as a last facet, we got the 3 requirement areas and contexts of our tasks. Those are fundamental, practical, and transdisciplinary reasoning. So there are different levels students can reach while doing our tasks. Here we can see our study design, which tracks students' core development across 4 points. As I said, on a whole bachelor program from T0 to T3. And we started in 2023 with an initial survey of 2,500 students and are currently just before or in T1. And at each point, 500 students complete an online assessment and 80 participate in quasi-experimental studies like eye tracking. This is what I mentioned earlier before when I said we are also tracking eye movements. This is something we do in our quasi-experimental studies because we can track this in the online assessment. Yeah, maybe let's have a look at this grid over here. Here we see a table with the self-assessed competencies of students just starting into the bachelor program. On the left, students report how often they used different online resources for studying, such as Google or textbooks. And for instance, most students use Google multiple times daily, while scholarly journals are used rarely or never. And on the right side, we see students self-assessed core skills across the 3 facets. And we see here that students consider themselves to have good to very good knowledge in all 3 facets. We are currently in the process of scoring the answers from our T0 assessment, and we are very curious to see whether the self-assessed competencies really correspond to the measured competencies in our core assessment. Yeah, thank you so much for your attention, and if you got any questions to my poster or our research, don't hesitate to ask.
Thank you very much, Paul. And I love that this is an ongoing project. So you have had a chance to present at a conference and have these professional conversations with other researchers and interested people. And this is an ongoing project, so you can test your ideas and continue the work. Thank you so much. That was a fantastic presentation. I think now I'll call on Ottavia to share. We'll hear from one of the judges now. Ottavia is from the University of Padova in Italy and is a co-convener of the European Conference for Educational Research Emerging Researchers Group. She's a tenure-track researcher at the university and is working in teacher education and educational technologies. Her PhD was awarded in 2020. So it's really great to see these opportunities to be a judge or to participate in submitting posters, but also at the other end where you're judging as an early career researcher and providing that important peer feedback. Thanks, Ottavia.
Thank you, and welcome everybody. Yes, you're absolutely right. It's great to be at the same time an emerging researcher and talk with emerging researchers and help each other. And this is one of the intentions of the Emerging Researchers Group at the European section of the WERA. So it is great. And just this year we were together actually in the Best Poster jury. So it was an experience about that. I wanted to talk a little bit about what that entails at ERC, Emerging Researchers Conference. So we have 2 moments where you can present your poster. One is much like the BERA, a lobby, and in the same at the same time in the same room, everybody gets to present their poster and engage in meaningful conversations with the audience, and that's absolutely great and so inspiring. But we also have poster sessions where participants can present their posters in groups of usually 3 to 4 people in the same session. Each of them has 10 minutes to present their poster, which is quite long for a poster presentation compared to other conferences. And this is intentional to give emerging researchers time to explore what they have to say. But at the same time, it's not long enough, nearly long enough to say everything. So some choices have to be made nevertheless. Part of our duty this year was to judge the best posters, and the best posters at ERC have win mention. Of course, they get shared on the website, they get maximum visibility from us, but also they receive a not insignificant bursary for the next conference in the following year. They are invited officially and get a bursary for that. So that's also very interesting. What, as a judge, what were we looking for in a poster, in a successful poster? So the criteria are public and transparent so that everybody can appreciate how they will be assessed, but it's still worth mentioning them. So we look for the quality of the research. We heard the wonderful one from Paul. So we can all appreciate how and why this could be praised. Quality of research, originality in the work presented. This year particularly, there were so many discussions with Natasha and the other judges about the positionality of the researcher in their own research, the ethics in the point of view of the researcher in their own study, and the originality of both content or methodology in addressing a focus. So this all contributes also to the added value of the research in terms of advancing the field as well. Of course, because we are part of the European Educational Research Association, we look for a European contextualization of the research. So even though most studies are locally based and of course relevant to their own context, we strive to see the benefit for everybody in the field beyond the specific context, and specifically possibly European. One other point of quality in the Best Poster award is how you deliver your presentation. So there are shyer people than others. That's not a problem. And of course, everybody starts somewhere. It might be your first presentation. That's not a problem as well. So of course, we praise confidence, but we all know that it is not innate skill and it needs to be developed. What it is important is the effectiveness of your communication, both verbal, non-verbal, visual. Specifically, this is a poster after all. So we look for balance in written part and visual parts, and the fact that not everything can fit in a poster. It's not a paper. We need to decide what we want to focus on and to deliver the point across. That's the most important thing. I think there will be possibly so many questions about that, how to structure a poster or how to best deliver it, but I will leave that for later possibly, and happy to be here.
Thank you, Ottavia. I actually have one question for you before you
Absolutely.
go. So communicating your research is really important at a conference, but there's also a Best Poster prize, and we don't do these things for prizes, but it's actually quite substantial. So can you talk us through a little bit about what winning the prize means for your research?
Yes. So as I said, there is an award ceremony at the end of the ESR, actually, ERC and ESR conference, where you will be publicly attributed the prize and the award. And the award will be published also on the website. You can find the latest winners on the website. This year, actually, we had two because it was so difficult to decide which one was best. So you have your poster published online and distributed as much as we can. You are also invited officially for subsequent publications, although we can't guarantee any publication. We just facilitate the process of getting published. And as I said, there is this bursary for the next year, the next conference, which is 550 euros bursary. And you get an official invitation to be part of the next year's conference. Now, it is not unusual that the Best Poster winners also become co-conveners, so they can achieve further titles and useful for their CV and their career. And so really, there, as I said to many participants this year, there's no downside to participating to the competition or to just present your poster, because you get meaningful conversations, you get the possibility to win bursaries, to win titles, to be considered and be noticed in your field, and yes, advance in your career as well.
Fantastic. And Octavia, you are a testament to that, because you are now a co-convener and a poster judge as an early career researcher, which is just a marvelous opportunity both for you, but the amount you give so much back to other doctoral and emerging researchers as a leader. So we're very grateful for your time. Thank you so much, and for your insights and your wisdom. Now we're going to hear from a second judge. Unfortunately, Laura Camas cannot be with us today because she is working in Malabo, and we've got, there are some issues with internet connectivity there. So she's actually prepared a very short video that I think is brilliant and will provide some important insights. So Laura is from the University of Madrid, and she is the WERA representative from the Spanish Pedagogical Society. So just bear with me for a moment while I share my screen. Oh, here we go. Okay.
Hi, everyone. This is Laura Camas, professor at the Complutense University of Madrid and part of the Doctoral and Early Career Network. And today I'm going to talk about what makes an effective poster in an international conference, and specifically in a conference of the World Educational Research Association. So basically, we could say there are two main dimensions to really take into account when making an effective poster. And these two are, first of all, the content of your poster, and then, let's say, the graphic and the visual design of your poster. So first of all, related to the content, it is important to really find a title that describe your research, and also that it could generate kind of curiosity to the people that are going to be around in the room looking at different posters, right? So really take care of the title that you choose. Also, it is important that you really describe the relevance and the originality, I would say, of your poster, in terms of how important is this topic for educational research worldwide, right? So that means that it's not going to be something like really specific. It's something that really it's important for worldwide, right? Another aspect is the contextual relevance, and that means that there must be a kind of connection between the local, the regional, the national, or the international aspect of your research topic in your poster. I will also say it is important to describe and define the research problem that you're trying to approach. And that means that the research questions must be clear, and the reader should be able to really identify the problem and also the questions that you would like to respond. And connected to that last point, it is essential to really justify a theoretical framework which is coherent with the research problem, right? I will also say that, for example, like clarity and transparency of your results, it is an essential point in making an effective poster, because it's going to really help to the reader to see to what extent you really respond to the research problem. And finally, don't forget to really highlight the contributions of your research in the poster. And then approaching to the second dimension, the one which is related to the graphic and visual design, I will say that it is important to really take care of the attractiveness of the poster. And that means not only taking care of, for example, the palette of the colors that you have chosen, but also really looking at the symmetry that your poster may have. For example, really, you should really make sure that there is a balance between the text elements and the graphic elements of your posters. And this is also connected with the structure of your poster, meaning that there must be a visual thing, right? A poster is something that really needs to have a structure, and that means that there must be text and there must be graphical elements, but it needs to have a clear structure in the poster. Finally, I will say that once that you have your poster well organized and really making the balance between these two dimensions, it is super important for you to really get familiarized with the poster so you can really communicate your research in a direct way, in a familiar way, so you can really feel comfortable with the content. And I think that will be all. I hope you really enjoyed this short presentation, and I wish I could be there, but I can't. So I hope to see you all soon. Bye.
Good morning, everybody, or good evening. There was one question about what is the end of the year? I think it was about the announcement of when the prizes will be put on the website, because everybody's academic year is quite different. Can just verify that.
Yes, well, I'll direct that one to Lisa. No, sorry, to Ottavia. What did you mean by end of year? Did you mean the end of the calendar year?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
The poster prize winners will be going up at the end of the year. It's usually after the conference. So
Yes, no, it's awarded at the very last day of the ERC conference, so on the Tuesday of the conference. And the time that it gets on the website, it might take a couple of weeks or 2 or 3 weeks. I see that it's already up for this year. And so before the end of the calendar year, it's online. If that answers.
Yes, thank you. And maybe what I thought was quite interesting is that the presentation of the two posters are quite different. The one was a landscape and the one was portrait. And the colors and the tones were quite different as well. Maybe, Ottavia, could you maybe just tell us, when you're judging the posters, or even Natasha, what is important about maybe the font and the layout when you look at that?
I don't know if you want to take it. We can bounce off ideas from each other. So it wasn't a requirement, at least in year C, landscape mode or portrait mode. It's not a requirement. The crucial aspect is that it conveys best what you want to say, and the font. The size of the text, just as we heard from the video, that is important inside. The balance between text and visuals, that's very important. One thing that we noticed this year was the use of very decorative visuals that didn't really convey any meaning. That's not a plus. That's actually taking away physically space from what you can fit in your poster. So I would argue and suggest to take away all the unnecessary visuals, to put in, though, meaningful visuals that can be graphs of results, that can be theoretical frameworks, that can be synthesis of your methods, anything that helps the audience understand what you're doing without adding too much text, which is difficult to read because it's a big poster anyway, but it's not that big that one can stay there to read for multiple minutes at a time.
I agree with that. Can I just say there were quite a few posters that did have images as decorations, so a tree in the corner, and that is valuable space on the poster. So, but there were some interesting symbolic and representative images, and I thought they then added to the narrative.
Thank you. So we have a question from Carmen about when do you think is the best time to start thinking about a poster?
Well,
Yes. Sorry, did I interrupt somebody?
No, that was directed at you, Paul. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so when do you think is the best time to start with a poster? I think a poster is a very good way to start with presenting on national or international conferences. For example, I started in beginning of the year, end of the last year with my research assistant career. And also for me, a poster was the first type of participation at a conference. So if you mean when you want to, at what time you want to start within participation at conferences, I think as early as you want to, and as early as you have something to hand in at the call for abstracts or call for posters, just try to write an abstract. And I think a post is always a good type of participation at a conference. So just go ahead and try out
Octavia, did you have something to add to that?
No, I completely agree. As the sooner the better, and just start jotting down something.
Yeah, the submissions, the applications are coming up soon, so early next year in January, so you do have to be prepared. It's a good 9 months before you actually present the poster from when you put in your submission.
May I add something to that, though? At least in ERC, but I'm sure everywhere, we do have a round of reviews, even for posters. So one thing that's very useful for anyone who wants to present is to read through the reviews, because we put a lot of time and effort into them. It's not just checking off a checklist. We try to give meaningful feedback to the authors. So read through that, do the proper changes if you see them fit, or be prepared to argue why you didn't want to change what was suggested to be changed, because it might be that we are wrong, but then let us help us understand why we were wrong in noticing something. So really do your best to take advantage of the reviews.
Maybe Octavia or Natasha, if you could answer the question. So in your research process, when is a good, I mean, we saw here that Paul did his research in while he's busy with it, he hasn't completed it. Is there a good time to do a poster presentation during the different periods of your research process?
I'm happy to take that one. Yes, at all stages. So when I was doing my doctorate, I did a poster presentation, and years after finishing my doctorate, I did another poster presentation last year. Sometimes it can be a really effective format. I like the format of posters. And occasionally I will do a poster and a paper presentation and put submissions in for both, hoping that they'll both get up. Lisa, would you like to share your experiences?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's a lot of really great comments just coming out, and it really is. I'm just going to emphasize that, like anything in terms of conference attendance and conference presentation, the earlier people can be there and be part of that and see and experience it and contribute to it, I think is a really important part of the doctoral journey and the research journey. So I'll be encouraging anybody to be there. And to start those networks. In terms of poster, when is a good time? I think you've all hit on the key points, which is that a poster can be the entirety of the research, the summary. It can be very small, focused insights into parts of that research. It might be just the methodology, it might be the data collection, it might be the analysis, it may well be just the rationale behind the proposal itself. A poster can represent any part or all parts of the research that's happening, and so therefore using that as an opportunity to really synthesize your own thoughts, your own processes, your own challenges and dilemmas and questions that you've had to overcome in terms of your research, and then present them. And I think that we've both Octavia and yourself, Natasha, picked up about the visuals. You know, having visuals on there that you have created that are very specific around disseminating your research process is a really important part of just the research cycle and journey. So not necessarily having visuals that aren't related to the research, but that create the process of creating the artifact of the visual is a really valuable use of time. So I'm a huge advocate of the poster. I'm a huge advocate of the poster being part of any conference format, purely because the poster is always visible, whether it be in the lobby, whether it be online in the app, whether it be online on the website, whether it be in the room as part of the presentations and discussion. It means that it's always there and it's always visible, and there's always opportunity to talk about it. So the more that people can be involved in those and spend the time creating them, I think there's a really valuable opportunity for all the things that we've talked about this morning, which is discussing research, getting visibility of research, getting visibility of yourself as a researcher, of creating that network, being able to share it, being able to share your work. It's all a hugely, there's a huge amount of reward for the time investment that comes from the creation of a poster.
Thanks, Lisa. I might just jump in again because I think we've missed a question on, and it relates to this, about the different designs or gimmicks. What's the most memorable poster that we've seen? And I'd like to share that there was this extraordinary poster this year that looked like a road map. So there was a road and there were signs all the way down, which I thought was fascinating. So it didn't look like a traditional poster, but it caught my eye, and I read that poster word for word from top to bottom just because it had been set out. So it really was, as you say, it was striking. It wasn't text heavy, and the presentation can carry some of that communication about the poster. But I think if you do that design, then you do need to be very careful with how you use the text so that it can still be faithful to the original research and communicate it in a clear and coherent way. But yeah, it was a fun poster. Would anyone else like to share a poster that they saw that was particularly memorable? Octavia, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I had a thought related to what you just said. That goes to we need to keep in mind how this will be conveyed, right? A paper, one has the time to autonomously read it at their own pace, at their own time. A poster, you are seeing it, and the interaction with the person that wrote the poster is crucial. So you can't think of your audience as someone who autonomously understands what's going on, because then you would need so much text to let them understand on their own. But you can't either rely too much on what you're saying, because the audience is moving. If you are in the lobby, especially, the audience is moving. And so you need to be very quick in what you say and explain what's on your poster, and at the same time anchor what you're saying with visuals that are meaningful and text that is meaningful, keywords and things like that. I remember this very graphic poster this year that had somewhat decorative visuals in it, and that's also why it didn't win, but it still was very well curated, and it helped the audience structure their understanding. So there was a first part, a second part, a third part of it, sort of like a roadmap, but not in the traditional sense of a roadmap, just sections highlighted and clear titles, clear connections between the sections, and things like that.
I think, Paul, did you have an idea as well? Did you have...
Yeah, I just wanted to add also something from to the question of Cass from the University of Tokyo. I'm so sorry I didn't read the whole question because the chat went crazy at this time. You asked for the recommendation for creating figures and something like that, and also a few posts later, somebody asked for this. I mean, you can. So I did my poster on PowerPoint, so you can totally use PowerPoint for everything. And if you want to deep dive into the features of PowerPoint, you see, I mean, you can do everything in PowerPoint, but also on Canva, maybe Adobe Illustrator if you have a full version of this from your university or something like that. But also there are so many free versions of software you can use for visualization of your research. Yeah, that's what I wanted to add for the last question. Yeah.
Thanks, Paul. I was going to ask that next. Then there's another question that's popped up a bit further down about, so we saw posters that stood out, but what were any common mistakes that you saw in some of the posters that were presented? Lisa, would you like to maybe take this one?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of the mistakes kind of come from some of the things that we've hinted at and we've been discussing here already. A poster that is heavily word dominant is going to be very difficult to access. So that the poster needs to be informative. It needs to be visually enticing and capturing. And it wants to convey information, but it shouldn't be text heavy. Somebody shouldn't have to spend a huge amount of time reading very fine details. As you can see from Paul's, it's separated out into various sections, which means that people can hone in on the parts that they are interested in. So in terms of common mistakes, it is really about being too text heavy, about being too the font size not really being able to be accessible from a distance. You want to be able to see key areas very quickly, which then means that you can focus in on those, and that the visuals should be related and relevant to the dissemination and the discussion around the research that you're trying to do. I think the other thing that I've seen in posters is, I think sometimes it's maybe a little bit of a fear about being too bold, is that there's too much space. So somebody doesn't do an awful lot of text because they think, I don't want to be too text heavy, but then the font is too small and there isn't quite enough. So there's actually quite a lot of space on the poster, and things can feel quite isolated across the space of the poster, rather than really embracing having some bold headings with some accessible bullet point or visuals underneath to really capture a particular discussion point or conversation piece in a poster. So be bold, be brave with it, but also just think, okay, is this conveying the very essence of what it is that I'm trying to say? And that's one of the beauties of the poster, is that you do have to be incredibly succinct. What is it I'm trying to say, and how am I going to convey that? And someone's going to get it really quickly by all the other posters that are going past them at the same time.
Thanks, Lisa. I think that's important what you said. There needs to be a nice balance between what you see, what you write, and it has to be in essence. You can't overwrite because it shouldn't be too complicated. Maybe Natasha, if you could take the question about when is the next poster presentation for the conference? I think maybe there's some clarity around that.
Yeah, I'll take both of the Griffith University from Pam said is a 3-minute thesis first, is poster first 3-minute thesis, and as a person doing a research higher degree, which is braver. There are also short and sharp presentations, so 7-minute presentations where you might have a fixed number of slides that you can present. So we call them Ignite sessions at some at conferences. That I would say go for it. Just as Lisa said, be really brave and go for it. The more you can articulate, the more you can rehearse and practice your research. So whether it is a 3-minute thesis competition or a poster presentation, what you're doing continually is refining those conceptual ideas. You're defining the core concepts in your work. You're explaining them. You're challenging ideas. You're making a contribution to the field. You need to have a robust research question. You need to be able to locate that research question within the existing research. So there's a whole lot of important work that you're doing, and this changes throughout your journey. I was a very different person going into my PhD than I was coming out. You know, I thought I had learned something, but I'd also learned something about the nature of knowledge, and that, gee, there's so much more to know, and it's exciting and frightening at the same time. I thought I knew something about my topic, and it's just I can spend the rest of my life researching it, and as I said, that's the exciting part of it. But through this pursuit of knowledge, as you create your poster, as you communicate it to other people, they too will have their ideas. They will be able to connect with it in some way. Paul, I have questions. I'm really interested in your research. Just hearing about that research now, it raises questions for my own practice, and what are my own students doing when they're engaging with asynchronous learning in their courses and so on. So, you know, there's a fascinating connection, even though your research might not be in the same field. So any opportunity you get to articulate your research helps clarify, and this is for me, it helps clarify for me in my own mind what my argument is, what I'm trying to say, and what contribution I can make. And that changes for every project at different stages of the project. It's not static, it's quite a dynamic process. So if it was me, I would go for them all. And quite often for conferences, I never just put in one submission, I put in 2 submissions in the hope that both will get up, and they'll be 2 different aspects of a project. So the next one, when is the next poster presentation for the conference? Well, the submissions for ECER, they're usually due in January. I think BERA is very close. They both have poster presentations at those conferences. The next WERA conference, I don't know if I'm allowed to, I'm not sure if it's officially been announced, but anyway, you heard it here first, will be in Brazil next year, so in 2025, and we will certainly keep you posted. What I will do is just in the chat now, I've got our WERA website and the WERA Doctoral and Early Career Researcher LinkedIn page, where we will post up when submissions are due for various conferences that you might be interested in going to. But you'll find most conferences will have a submission option for posters.
Thanks, Natasha. I think it's also important what you mentioned there is that going to these conferences is not just presenting your work, but also collaborating and learning with other things. I mean, I don't think people see the value of that, particularly with the poster presentation, but just going to the conference, you see what knowledge is out there, and that also makes your research more solid in what you're trying to do. There's a question from Wendy here. I think you've sort of answered it, Natasha, but maybe we need to explore a bit more about when you do a poster presentation, what is needed when you attend the conference, the abstract, the number of words, etc. I think so. And before I go to that question, I think the EASA conference, as far as I understand, the submissions have closed already. So that's been done. So it would have to just be for the Brazil conference.
Maybe Ottavia, did you want to take that one?
Yes. So we do have a specific format for posters at ERC. It's less heavy than a paper, of course, submission. It's about 600, 700 words total, the original abstract. It gets reviewed, and then you do have the possibility to expand on your abstract for the proceedings. Still, it's not as long as a paper, and paper proceedings, that's what I mean. And it has its own guidelines. On that note, I think the deadline is already up, but it's not open yet. So submissions will be open from the 1st of December till the 31st of January for all the different formats, including the posters for ERC. So we do have specific guidelines for posters, which I think, going back to what you said, is useful for any different stages of a doctoral or postdoctoral career, because I'm thinking at the beginning you are not so confident in writing a long abstract or a long paper, and maybe you're just at the beginning of understanding your own ideas of what you're doing, and you can submit something lighter and easier and get feedback on that. And then in the meantime, anyway, because you submit in January, you get all spring to grow and present something more advanced, possibly in the summer at the conference, and practice even your oral skills, you know, presenting the same thing over and over and over to different audiences. So that's useful for who is at the beginning, or who is more advanced. Maybe they want a nugget of information to be able to see if that holds up to presentation, to maybe publish something that's minor in their research, and it's not the main research you need to publish, but something collateral you want to see if it stands to public scrutiny.
Okay, well, we might leave it there because our hour's almost up. What I wanted to say was to thank everybody for being part of this. There is a very strong international research community, and I am so proud that the doctoral and early career researcher community can come together like this. The fact that we've been able to hear from people in different regions all over the world is incredibly exciting. Attending conferences can be daunting, but at the same time, it's one of the most enriching and inspiring and educative experiences you could possibly have in academia. That's my opinion. I really want to thank our presenters, especially Paul, for presenting his poster. This was a BERA-WERA encore poster presentation, so we're very grateful for your presentation and your time, but also to the rest of the team, Lisa, Tavia, Marissa, for being part of this today and for sharing your insights about poster presentation, but also your passion and enthusiasm. It's just such a wonderful community to be part of. Best wishes with your submissions for the for poster presentations or other presentations at conferences, and we wish you all the best.